And hello and welcome, my name is Martin, and in the last tutorial what we introduced you to were navigation invokers. We added them to the pre-existing H-missiles and H-missile AIs that we had, but we really didn't see them set up in a range, sort of like roaming around. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to create an area here that's going to be smaller. And we're going to create new H missiles that don't have the restrictions as far as where they can actually show up, or where they can actually attack from, I should say. Okay, so let's go ahead and create these real quick. So what we're going to need to do is create a new H missile and a new H missile AI. So let's go ahead and do that for both. So I'm going to duplicate the third missile and duplicate the fourth one, or duplicate the AI for the third one. So now we have a fourth AI. So first thing that we're going to need to do is go to H-missile 4, and there's going to have to be a couple of changes, obviously, that we're going to need to make to the code. First thing is that we're going to need to get rid of the variable at the end of the spawn. So we'll need to go ahead and create another one. So let's call this H-missile 3 or H-missile 4 expo. So we need to promote this to a variable. Let's click on the variable. And now let's give it that name. So H missile 4 underscore explo. Okay. And then we are going to go ahead and destroy this. And we'll click out of the destroy actor to destroy actor. Okay, so we've got that now. This one should already have a navigation invoker in there, and we already should by default have it by 2 to 2 since that's something that we had created already. So at this point we should be able to, there is something else that we obviously need to do to this. This is going to be H-missile 4 right now. It is still listening to H-missile 3 AI, or whichever one you copied it off of, so we are going to need to switch that and make it 4. And the other thing that we are also going to want to do with this, we are going to be regenerating this, so respawning it. So we want it to, the AI to auto-possess both when it's placed in the world and when it's spawned. And at this point we should be able to hit compile and save. And the things that we'll need to do now is obviously we need to find the new location for where we want this to respawn. This is not going to respawn back over where H-missile 3 was respawning. The other thing we'll also need to do is tell it not to respawn H-missile 3. We actually need this to respawn H-missile 4. So that would be one of the other things that we need to do as well. So what we'll do is get some location targets off of this real quick. But first let's go and define the area that we're looking for, that we need to get this to work in. So with this done, let's go ahead and hit compile and save for H-missile 4. So again, what we have done, just to recap, we've clicked on the navigation invoker, we've made sure that it's 200 by 200, then we went into H-missile itself, the H-missile self. We made sure that this was placed and spawned and that it was also referring back to H-missile 4, and then we made sure that H-missile 4 was the one that was going to be regenerated. So those are the things that we've done to this. So let's go ahead and compile and save and close. And now let's go into the AI for 4. And this one, what's going to change is going to be the in-range floats. Obviously we are going to need to find new floats for this. And then the other thing that we will also want to do is click start all logic on possessions. So then that way every time this thing does get possessed, the AI will automatically become part of this. And then the other thing that we also need to do is make sure that this is attached to the pawn. So then that way the AI stays with the pawn as it begins to move. So that'll be that. So let's go ahead and get the 2 new in-range floats for this. So again, what we'll do is we'll just take this, slam it over into the side so we can see both of these. And I have already moved my measuring stick from the other location to here. So again, this is just a thin rod that I am using so that I can measure where these points are. So what I'm going to do is go here and find one of the values that I need. Okay, which will be, let's say right there. This will give me an XY value, so let's go ahead and grab these. So the first one is going to be the new X value, so we'll go ahead and hit Control C, place that here, Control V. We'll get the new Y value, Control C, place that in here, Control V. So now we have the new X and Y values, or at least for two of them. And then what we'll do is we'll move it over to the other adjacent corner that we can measure. Okay, and that'll roughly give me the XY values that I need for that. Let me just go ahead and select this again. So I have the XY values for this. And let's do that again now. So then we're going to copy Control C for the new X value, put that in here, and the new Y value, Control C, Control V. Let's hit compile and save. And at this point, let's go ahead and make that larger, make this larger. Okay. So at this point, what we should have now is the new XY values. So what we're doing is we're looking for the player character, but we didn't want them in the either zone 1, zone 2, or zone 3. So essentially what we've done here is we've created a new zone, zone 4. Which is going to be that open field in the area behind. Oh, and real quick before we move on, this was almost a mistake there. Remember that we always want to have a new function name here, so then that way none of the stuff that's happening with AI3 will interfere with the stuff that's happening with AI4. So let's go ahead and create a new custom event. So we're typing in custom event, and we're going to go ahead and call this follow player 4. I'm going to attach it to where it was, and now we want to do the same thing up here. We want to go ahead and make sure that they are both named the same, that there are no spaces in front or behind the word, and now we should be checking for that condition. So we should be able to hit compile and save and close this box. Let's open up the viewport, and at this point we should be able to put an HMissile4 out on the floor. It will generate its own box around itself, and that should be a 200 by 200 box. And the only thing we don't have happening right now is the regeneration. We have not put the regeneration of it in this area. So let's go ahead and do that, and we can actually go ahead and take the numbers from the HMissile AI and use that here. So let me go ahead and do that. So what I'm going to do then is go to HMissile4, grab both of these. So I just have the number. So I'm going to do a Control C to copy. I'm going to go into HMissile4 and I'm going to Control V. Now we would like to use these here and plug them in. There's two issues. The first issue is that this is a single location. This would be double. This would be booleans, and this is also coming in as a vector input. That's why it's yellow. So right off the bat, they're not going to connect. Now the other thing also is there are slightly better option. This in-range float also has a value that it's checking against this in-range float, and that's a problem because we don't have anything that we're actually going to be checking against, because the last time we did this we were using this to check where our first-person player was in relationship to these numbers to then figure out if that situation was true. In this case we don't need a true, we just want to set up a range. So let's go ahead and do range and float. So we're not looking for an in-range float. we're looking for literally just a float range. That's not it. That's it, random float in range. So as long as it's within this random float, this return value will give us the true condition that we're looking for. So let's just go ahead and copy these. So we're going to do a Control-C, Control-V, Control-C, Control-V. And probably before this, we could have made another copy. Now we'll just have to grab another one. So let's just random float in range. And then we'll use this for the Y value. So Control-C, Control-V, Control-C, Control-A, Control-C, and Control-V. So now we have the X values here and the Y values there. I can go ahead and delete both of those. That way I didn't have to go and find them again. Now we still have the problem that this is still only accepting one pin. So what we'll need to do is split this pin. So we'll right click on the yellow vector input and we will say split struct pin. That will give us an X, Y, and Z value, and then we can go ahead and attach our X to X and our Y to Y. And what this will do now is it will randomly spawn a H missile 4 within this range. And that's exactly what we're looking to do. And you always want to make sure that that respawning is going to be the proper missile. So now I believe we have everything that we're looking for, except for one last thing. So as it's happening right now, if I was to push play and start, this field that is green will be the only part of that entire area that we have now placed that will allow movement in there. Because every time a new missile is respawned, if it doesn't respawn inside this square, it's not going to work. So what we'll need to do is change one more setting. So we're going to go back to Settings, Project Setting, and we'll wait for that to pull up. There it is. And we're looking this time for Navigation Mesh. And what we want to do is this right here. So underneath Runtime, what you'll see is force reload on load, or force rebuild on load. So that needs to be checked. By default, it usually is not checked. So I think I've already made the changes here. So go ahead and have this checked. And by default, this would be on static. We need this to be on dynamic. What this is going to do is two things. It will every time we reload a new, or we respawn something, it will be forced to rebuild a new nav mesh area, and it will be dynamic, which will mean that it will constantly keep moving with the object. So these are the two changes that we want. So again, this was a navigation mesh in the area called runtime. So with those two things done, now all I have to do is get into the area that this guy is in, and it will start to attack me, and it will be dynamic. So let's go ahead and push play, and I don't know where I am. Hold on. Let me put me closer to where this action is going to be happening. So let's grab this, and I'm going to put him just outside the area here. So remember that we cordoned off and we gave this thing a range of where it can attack. Okay, so if we look, there's the range that we gave it. Compile, save, missile, compile, save. Let's close both of these, and let's push play. So I can see the missile over there. I'm going to walk into the area. It's not going to attack me yet until I walk into its square. Bogus. Okay, so it's not working. So let's figure out why. Okay, so it looks like the only real mistake that I had was that I had gotten a couple of the numbers wrong. I put them in the wrong places, so I just switched my X and my Y values around. So I put the min and the max values, I switched those and switched the min and the max values there, and I was able to get this to work. So now let's go ahead and check and see what this should feel like. So we shouldn't get movement until I'm inside of its box. It'll respawn somewhere in this larger area, and then I have to get close enough to this to get it to attack me again. So let's go ahead and push play. So we can see that I'm outside of the box, nothing is happening. I walk inside the box, it explodes. I scan around for the next creation of this. There it is over there. I have to get close enough to its box, which has been freshly generated, and you'll see that it did start moving towards me. So let's go and find, there's the next one. Again, nothing is happening. I get close enough in its box, and it attacks me. All right, and what this does is it creates a situation that makes it feel like something is respawning naturally, randomly within an area. That object won't actually come and attack you, like maybe if it was a wild animal or something like that, until you got close enough to it, and then it would start making its way towards you, right? So you can see that that guy is now following me until I explode it. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed this video on Navigation Invokers. I hope this has shown you how to do both smaller area where you don't use an invoker and a larger area where you do use the invoker. Yep, and I just hope you've enjoyed the video and it's been very helpful. So have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.